First of all, obviously, thank you, all of you, for joining me. I've got to admit, this is the most I've had in one Zoom call, 5. So you've set a new record right from the beginning. How about that?
Right.
The obvious way to start, of course, if we could go around the board, and for everybody that's going to watch this and for the listeners to our audio show, if you could just introduce yourselves, your part in 10 Minutes to Midnight, and then we'll take it from there. And of course, ladies first.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Williams. I play Amy Marlowe.
I'm Erik Bloomquist. I directed Rope, one of the producers in the movie.
Thomson?
I'm Thomson Nguyen, and I'm the cinematographer of the movie.
I'm Adam Weppler. I am one of the producers, and I also play Aaron.
And I think also, like I said before we started the actual recording part of this, I only ever come into interviews for these, especially with one question. And it's for you, Erik, for everybody watching and for everybody listening. What is 10 Minutes to Midnight?
What is 10 Minutes to Midnight?
Yeah.
10 Minutes to Midnight takes place on one rainy night at a rundown small town radio station when their longtime overnight disc jockey, Amy Marlowe, comes into work after possibly being bit by a bat. And upon entry, she also pieces 2 and 2 together that she is getting the boot and is getting replaced, and her replacement is now shadowing her. And as the night goes on, things get weirder and weirder, both interpersonally and biologically.
It does. Right from the beginning, one of the things I loved about this is the way that it plays with time, it plays with reality, and even from the very, very beginning, it even plays with aspect ratios, and you start off with 4:3. And one of the things I love about it, and independent filmmaking in general, is they are nowhere near as predictable as mainstream movies. And watching this, I'd got no idea what was going to happen next. I'd got no idea how it was going to end, and I love that when watching the film. So when you were writing it, Erik, because... And again, I don't want to give any spoilers because people haven't watched this until Grimmfest and the show will be out before then. When you were writing it, Erik, what was the process of putting this whole thing together, the whole narrative? Because it goes off in so many different directions.
My brother Carson and I were writing it together, and we thought that it would be interesting for it to be a movie about transformation, using vampirism as a metaphor for some kind of forced death by way of forced retirement, and then what that is. An early idea was making a movie that we could portray the subjective experience of fear, of dread, of seeing things through somebody's eyes. As part of that transformative process is the world around you starts to shift. And so that was an early idea. And then once that was all sort of, the groundwork was laying for that, conversations with Adam early on creatively were just about refining that logic. So things that seemed random or unexpected, still rooted in some kind of strong movie logic for what was actually happening in terms of the line between reality, hallucinations, and then like full on like otherworldly fugue state. So we set up our own rules for that, which I can't go super into right now without going into spoilers, but I'd be happy to do a follow-up show. It's definitely something we talked about a lot. But just to make sure that that was really clearly defined in terms of like what that visual vocabulary was with Thomson, what those performances were, and so that everybody here had an idea of what was really happening and what wasn't really happening, because that affected performance and how scenes were done. Did I cover that, Adam, or did I miss it?
No, that's spot on. And we said we don't have to. The audience doesn't. We don't have to tie up everything really pretty for the audience. The audience is smart. They're gonna, and you want a certain amount of interpretation with these kind of themes, but your logic needs to make sense to you. Our logic needs back to us. People don't need to necessarily know everything we're thinking, but we need to know everything we're thinking, and it needs to be congruent throughout the film.
Yeah, and I think that's really good that you leave a lot to the viewer as well. It can be interpreted in all sorts of different ways. And with you, Caroline, I mean, to begin with, it's always great to see you on screen. So it's good to see you on screen once again.
Thank you.
You carry this movie all the way through. One of the things I want to say right from the off as well is one scene particularly had me just locked to the screen, and then it's when you have this big rant in the radio station with Sienna, and I wanted to know, and I love that. I love Adam Sandler angry. I think now you've beaten him for my favorite angry scene in the movie, because when you go off on it, I was just loving it. I want to know, was that all entirely scripted, or was some of it improvised when you did that scene?
Everything was in the script. Everything was written down. I had the luxury of having Erik as my director. He was always right by frame. If he had to talk me through something, he did. I made it clear when we first came into this, because it's such an extremely different thing. I've never done anything like this before. This isn't, it's a spectacular opportunity, but I wanted to make sure I stayed absolutely true to, her emotional journey. I didn't want to resort to any Carolinisms. I didn't want to go into any little habits or default positions or things like that. I wanted to make sure that I stayed absolutely true to Amy and the journey she was on. And Erik was right there crafting every moment with me. And I haven't worked that closely with a director in a very, very long time. The closest probably would be Greenlight and Graham Denman. There's a lot of commonality between those two directors, frankly. They've got the same sensibilities. They've got the same intelligence. And boy, Erik was just right there guiding me through every single moment. And I think of the cast, we were an ensemble cast. I may have been in the lead role, but we were an ensemble cast. And the other actors were just so solid. They were so on their game. It was very difficult to not feel completely confident and ready to go every single moment.
Was you were saying then about the relationship between you and Erik, and what a difference that made to the film? Was having the one
Huge.
Small location in that radio station, did that make a difference as well? Because I should imagine the bigger the movies, huge sprawling locations and huge casts, a smaller cast and a smaller location, it gives that more of a sense of community between everybody that's involved.
Yes, it's a lot more familial. And, Amy's life is very cocooned. She's been living the same way for a long time, and she loves it. She loves the life that she has and has had. It's the ground is giving way underneath of her. So it was very utilitarian to have everything precisely as it was. It was great.
I'm presuming it a real radio station too?
Mm-hmm.
It was, yeah.
Yep.
Because I loved seeing, I've been in a few radio stations, and to see a radio, and I was fingers crossed, I thought, please let this be a real location, to see all the vinyl, to see CDs, to see cassettes.
I know.
Was brilliant.
Yeah. She actually puts a vinyl record on the turntable at one point. Mm-hmm. And I thrilled to that moment.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was an active radio station. We literally were shooting on the overnight shift every night. We would roll in at like 5:30 p.m. and we would shoot until sunrise, or we'd wrap the day at sunrise. So it was very regimented, but it was great because you just felt the history there, and you felt the passage of time, and that there was memory in that place, and yeah, of course the challenge is, and I know Tom's going to speak to this too, is when you're in a small one location place, how do you add variety visually to that? So that was something that we talked about too. I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Thomson, but.
I think the location is so rich that we were able to, get simple coverage, and I was able to stay away from the actors. And I think a combination of like talent and just the environment allowed us to have decent cinematography, and be able to tell a good story through, just great blocking and great relationships. And the set that was basically kind of laid out in front of us.
Because it has a lot of different looks as well. You go from the more traditional look as events are going through, and then there's one scene with Caroline when it's you're just stood there and it's pitch black, and all there is just a red phone lit up, and there's the red clock behind, which is a completely different look. So Thomson, was that something that you wanted to do as the movie progressed? Because as well, like I said, it's playing with time, it's playing with reality, and then you're playing with looks for the viewer on screen. Everything's changing all the time. It's like a sensory overload as things are playing out.
I think, you know, because we were working with a small location, or one location, Erik and I were just trying to figure out how to get as many different looks. And I think it was also written in a story in order to help, you know, visually get different looks out of each location. So, and then, you know, to add on top of that, you know, I was playing a little bit more with lighting and getting a little bit more surreal with it as the story progresses, and it just kind of made sense for the film.
And you said, Erik, as well, about with using that radio station and the memories there and the passage of time, plays in perfectly to the whole story of 10 Minutes to Midnight and your character, Caroline, of that passage of time and the memories that are in that building. So again, as a performance, did that help you, that you got all this reality around you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you've got an authentic location that has been lived in, you can feel the human experience within those walls, you know? You know, I went through the record albums. I mean,
oh, great.
That's from my era. That's my jam, you know? Yeah, it was wonderful. A wonderful sense of authenticity.
I was hoping you'd have gone through the records, because I thought if I was there, I'd just be flicking through everything, looking up at what
I couldn't. I'm just, my curiosity got the better of me, and it was great.
Oh, that's good. And Adam, Caroline's character Amy again, no spoilers, is going through a lot as this progresses, and in a way, you're almost like the viewer. You're looking at it, and you don't know exactly, or do you? Again, no spoiler of what exactly is happening. So as a viewer, I was looking sort of through your eyes, and the relationship between the two of you, because in the film, you know, you're good friends, and that really comes across as well. So how do you build that as performers when you're going into a new shoot and you're introduced and these are the characters you're playing, but then you play it as though you've just known each other years and you've been working for years in this place?
Yeah, well, you know, I think one of the great things about this script, and with the other actors in this project, is that nobody is really clean and perfect. You know,
Right.
Everybody is really human. They have their own flaws. They have their shades of gray. And I think that it's when you're in a place like that, like an active radio station that is really lived in, it feels easier to draw on yourself and your friends and your experience. So I think for Aaron, you know, Aaron is very similar to a lot of guys I grew up with, the guys that I'm still really good friends with. And I think that, you know, trying to find his relationship, not only to his community there in, you know, WLST, but also his relationship to himself. And, you know, there's a point in this where he's torn between his self-preservation and his allegiance to Amy.
Mm-hmm. There's so much in it with when the narrative is progressing. And another thing, and again, I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say lucid dreams are mentioned, which again pricks my ears up, because I've had lucid dreams since I was a kid. And I remember trying to control myself when I was in a lucid dream to stay in them. So again, seeing it mentioned, and I'm not going to say how it's brought into the story itself, was something really, really interesting. And there was, within this scene, Caroline, your character again, to the way that she goes, okay, am I in a lucid dream or not? And you do something and it involves the side of your face, is all I'm going to say.
Great.
It's like, whoa. And it's you selling that. I mean, because of course you've never done it in reality, and neither have I, but the way that you sell it makes me go, yeah, that's how it would feel. With something so extreme, how do you approach a scene like that when you've got to do something that is quite extreme?
Frankly, it's the practicalities available to me to perform. It's a stunt to perform that stunt. And once again, preparation. We were a lean cast and crew. Everybody was on their game. There was not a lot of waiting ever. And they had already gone through in their mind, and I want Erik and Thomson to comment about this, how to shoot it, what kind of pad do we put down, how do we sell this with the action of the camera and everything. And we're also in this tiny little space. And the math of that set, the math of the appliance was also highly restrictive. So it had as much or more to do with Thomson and Erik blocking that out to make that moment happen.
Yeah. Would you?
I couldn't have done that.
I think that in another movie, the whole thing that she interacted with would have been constructed. It would have been built of something soft. But obviously, we're in a real kitchen and a real radio station, and we have.
That's right.
We sell it with motion, and we work out like we're sort of pre-editing exactly what it's going to look like. Before, and little motion tricks of like. I think it's the transition that you really need, because once we land, Caroline's just selling it. But it's just that transitional piece to get there. And I think part of that is also the building of suspense before it too. So you will she, won't she, what's going to happen, and then you have that one key moment, and then you jump in. So movie magic. But I'm glad it was effective.
Yeah, it was. Definitely.
We certainly think about those a lot. Is like, how can we sell things like that without having the resources that one would normally have for something like that?
And again, I wasn't expecting it, because I thought, oh, lucid dream, how do you pinch yourself, do something like that? I was not expecting this to happen. It just came out of left field. So did you Erik, did you think of anything else for that particular scene where you thought, okay, so to check if she is in this lucid dream, she's going to do whatever? Or was it using, because you'd got that location that was there?
I think we needed something extreme and something that would be an obvious disfigurement if it happened to her, in real life. And I forget how we justified it. Adam, was that a conversation we had that Aaron was just going to be making something? Is that how we ended on to justify that specific thing?
Yeah, we had lined it up with water boiling, and so we wanted it to be, you're seeing the pressure literally build in this scene, it being represented in the kettle and being, mirrored by Amy. So at a certain point, when it all explodes, we want it to, when the release comes, we want it to really be something visually exciting as well. We're a shorter movie. We wanted it to feel really fast paced. We wanted to feel like by the end of Act 2, you're like, where could this movie possibly go? You're having trouble keeping up with it almost.
Yeah.
In a single location and with an independent film budget, I think one of the biggest things we have to be aware of is the audience getting ahead of us. So one of the challenges, is thinking about from really early on, as close to as what your final product is going to look like, and how to kind of execute those things and keep them exciting and keep them new.
Yeah, which goes back to what I said at the start with independent film, and it's one of the things I love about independent film is you get more surprises watching it. You really do, and there's more creativity, even though you're restricted with budget and locations and everything else that comes with it. 9 times out of 10 for me, there's always more creativity and inspiration on screen with independent filmmaking.
Dave, you mentioned the scene earlier with the red phone. I mean, and just to your point, I don't know if others would see it this way, but I mean, to me, that was one of the more risky scenes of the movie, even though it was just on such a small scale. Like, it might not be surprising in the way that what we were just talking about was, but I felt like it was something that we could do because we were making the kind of movie we were, the way we were making it. We could spend 4 or 5 minutes with Caroline in that intimate way in the middle of this monster after all the stuff that happened before. Really trying to dance around spoilers. Yeah, I mean, but that to me is something that, because of the model that we had, we were allowed to take that risk and do an extended scene like that and really showcase Caroline in that really specific liminal state.
And it's good as well because everybody reads a film a different way, and with that one specific scene, it gives a little bit of interpretation for the viewer as well to read it how they want to read it and draw their own stuff from watching it too. And with Thomson, just going back to you as well, when you're lighting all these different scenes, and that one scene specifically where Caroline's just stood and you can just these two things that are in stark contrast, both blood red. I was reading it as well. It's the blood things that are there. How do you go approaching lighting things like this? What were the restrictions that you'd got, like you said, within this smaller location that you'd got?
Who wants to tell the story of lighting that scene? We all remember what happened, right?
Oh, this sounds interesting.
Oh, we're trying to get the scissor lift?
I'll preface it, and then Adam and Thomson can jump in. We were shooting that in a middle. So that was the one day that we weren't in the radio station, or it was a half. It was a nearby middle school, and the plan was that when we went into the gymnasium, there was going to be a scissor lift waiting for us.
Okay.
And there was not a scissor lift waiting for us.
No.
And the whole lighting setup was around that. And so we had to go to the other side of the school with a walkie-talkie that was like half working with the one custodian on duty, dig out a scissor lift from the auditorium. But like, you guys can jump in. It wasn't working. Like, it wasn't turning on.
You know, Dave, you said that it's always more exciting to watch independent movies because you're not sure what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. It's also really exciting to make them. All of a sudden, the thing that you really need is what's supposed to be our single shot in a different location, right? It's going to be a totally different visual than the rest of the movie. And now we can't get up to hang our blacks, to hang our do team.
Wow.
So it was definitely... There's always a unique challenge. But Thomson drove that thing right through the school.
Yeah, we had that was quite difficult actually, driving across the entire school and then getting it through like that tight door frame. Eventually we got
amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that set us back quite some time. So then our lighting team had to kind of make up for that lost time and kind of light it pretty quickly. But yeah, that lighting was fairly simple, and we thought about it and conceptualized it pretty early on, and made lighting plans, and it was a fairly simple setup in theory. And so yeah, it was. I think that scene in particular was kind of inspired by Under the Skin, and they did some scenes that looked fairly similar.
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was. I think it looks great, and it really made the film feel a lot bigger, and having all this breathing room in terms of the visual composition of it, and I think allowed you to kind of like take a step away from the tight locations of the radio station.
That little peek behind the curtain then, though, that's a great example of independent filmmaking creativity right there. Just think on your feet, overcome what you thought was going to be there.
I mean, the only constant is that there's going to be something unexpected and a hurdle you have to jump over and I won't say crisis, but I think we have learned as we have built the way we do things, the more prepared we are, the more room we have for improvisation and flexibility that will inevitably come. There's no other group of people that this movie could have been made with in 7 overnights. No way. Would not have happened. And I think it's because we all trust each other to do our own thing, but also trust each other's contributions and overlap and problem solving, and nobody's afraid to jump in and get dirty, which is why we can solve problems and curveballs as they come and keep moving, and everyone's down to take one for the team. Which is part of the joy of the whole thing too, is, how are we going to pull this off? I mean, we were all in the holding room on day one, like just had dinner, and we were all just standing around. And I don't usually do like big old day one speeches for everybody, but I was like, let's just all take a second, guys. We got this. And we all just like stood together for a second, and then we just went off. And really, for as crazy as it was, it went very smoothly. We never went overtime.
That's good.
We did it.
Couldn't afford to go in overtime.
Yeah, there was no option to go overtime.
That's
Yeah.
true. The morning show started at 6.
The
So
morning show started
Right
at 6. Yeah, we didn't have slop days. It was either get this done or have an incomplete project.
That is an extra layer of pressure, isn't it? And like you said, if you're working in a working radio station too, and you know that people are going to be coming in the morning, you're just constantly under the clock. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming up to the time, and again, I don't want this to cut out on us, so we'll say, for the sake of the edit, our goodbyes now. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a blast having a chat with you. Can't wait for everybody to see it at Grimmfest, and I'm looking forward to everything else that all of you are involved with. And keep doing what you do. The world seems to be against creative people at the moment, and everybody else, but fight against it and keep doing what you do.
You know, our good friend,
Thank you, Dave.
great Nick Tucci, he said, creation is an act of rebellion. So we're all a bunch of weirdos who like what we like. You know, got to keep that rebel spirit alive somehow.
Definitely. Stay weird is the way to go. All right. Thanks, guys. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.